Welcome to Monarchist Minute. I'm your host, William Stout, here with Toby Kosner from the UMP and Leon J. Krolewski. We have an interesting topic this Friday night, as in recently, King Charles finally did a very, very hard thing. At least I imagine it was hard for him, given that it was his brother, but Prince Andrew has finally been convinced to rescind his titles and step down from the royal family. But before we begin, how are you gentlemen this evening?
I'm doing all right. Busy with paperwork.
College related or otherwise?
Yeah. University related.
How about you, Toby?
Well, I am, and that's all about all I can say about that.
I can understand that. So, before we begin, does anyone have any opening comments to this?
You know, the British Republicans are interestingly complaining.
About
Because
what? This should be right in their wheelhouse.
you would think, but they're like, oh no, too little, too late. I'm like, bruh, at least the monarchy did something. What's the Republic here in America doing? Absolutely jack shit.
We haven't
Sorry.
even had a trial.
Yeah, we don't even know fully who is or who isn't for sure.
It's about time it's
Yeah. Yeah, it's definitely. I do agree with the sentiment. It is a little bit too late, but at least they have done something.
Well, now that they have done it, what do we think comes next? Do you think there'll be a trial now that he no longer has legal immunity, or?
I'm not sure. I can't really imagine.
I can see there being a trial. I hope there's a trial.
I'm reading through the article right now. It says he will remain a prince but will cease to be Duke of York, a title he received from his mother, the late Queen Elizabeth, as well as giving up membership at the Order of the Garter. Yada yada yada. So it seems like he's not
the minimum.
he's not completely disowned by the family. He still denies the accusations,
Obviously.
even though we all know he did it.
Yeah. Well, you want to bet he also went to Diddy parties as well.
He also what as well?
Well, I said, what do you want to bet he also went to Diddy parties?
I'm not gonna bet on that. Those were two completely different areas.
Right.
Yeah.
The different pedophile fiefdoms.
I remember when we had that conversation.
I remember you saying we should quote it for posterity.
It is still quoted for posterity.
Sorry, folks. It's very late in the night for us.
There's not really much
It's been a long week.
topic either.
No. I mean, it only came up a couple hours ago.
Yeah.
When we're recording this. I would like to say off of it is more so a thought I've had for a while, and one of my like chief criticisms with like the monarchies today, at least like the constitutional ones, quote unquote, and especially the royal families, those many of them with still in power and those some of them out of power, is the fact that because there's like this almost a siege mentality or this mentality where it's like they have to take baby steps everywhere because the flow is all glass. They'll be slow to react to whatever the issue is, whatever the internal issue is. With the whole Andrew Epstein Island situation, I've held for a long time that he should have been humiliated and perhaps not disowned, but most definitely like disgraced by his mother, and then obviously most definitely by his brother. But they didn't. I'll be honest. It was very disappointing. Though I understand the cynical reasons why. Well, the cynical and the sympathetic reasons why they wouldn't be so jumping the gun with it.
It's definitely a delicate situation, and of course, with the monarchy also being a family, the family has to deal with the internal drama as well. Queen's just not the queen or the king is just not stripping the titles of their son or brother. They're disowning their son and brother. It's not like a job or a corporate office, or I guess in a way that is, dare I say it, the one upside republics do have with civil servants. There's no necessary personal attachment to a job or a title. So if something happens, the person can be fired promptly without there being much internal drama. In theory, at least.
Yeah, in theory, we've all known though with like party ties and the quote unquote meritocracy and everything that there's just as much corruption and bias within the democratic republican systems.
I know it's wishful thinking on my part, but still, wishful thinking, I will.
I I said it before. I know, obviously off, not on the recording, but had this been like in like any other in an earlier time period, let's just say Middle Ages more generally, he would have been like disowned and stuff immediately.
Probably would have been drawn and quartered.
I don't think he'd do
Not
that because that
colder,
might
but
fall into the territory of kinslaying.
Nah, that's true.
it happens many times. If you actually read the history, at least just in Europe, how many times it happened. And it wouldn't be colder, it'd be probably anywhere from some sort of mutilation to a red common criminal's death, like being hung.
Or beheaded.
No, it's I don't know where you guys are reading this from. Beheading and quartering is like reserved for like regicide.
Hey, that was
Really.
one of the topics I brought up.
I
What
didn't
about
realize beheading was reserved for such high crimes.
Yeah, me neither.
Yeah. With everything with like them in the Middle Ages, it there was older and it had like significant importance. That's why you looked at the various courts. For example, purple was reserved only for the monarch. There was certain ways in which you like, and this goes from anywhere from France and England to like Byzantium to everything in between. There was certain an ordering in line of those who were closest to the king and those farthest away win the meeting hall. There was this, it was a whole system that we've eschewed in the modern period because it's like, it's basically put up to like royal decadence.
So, what would be probably the most common method of execution then?
The noose.
Depends on the crime. I mean, yeah, if it's a common crime like theft or murder or something by like commoners against commoners, yeah, it'd probably be hanging. I know regicide was basically that being hung, drawn, and quartered was preference for that. Now that I think back to it, being beheaded was more so like the noble death.
I know during the Revolutionary War, hanging was usually reserved for spies, whereas officers were usually executed by firing squad, and that's why Benedict Arnold's accomplice was hung, because he was hung as a spy rather than an officer.
Yeah. There's the difference between civilian and military. The being shot is always like reserved for military.
I've always been morbidly fascinated by culturally specific methods of execution. Like for
Like what?
example, the Kanban of China, which is where they basically lock you in a room full of venomous snakes.
Okay.
And
What else is there?
well, I know Vlad the Impaler actually learned his art from his time where he was training with the Janissaries. That originally that was a thing that was common with the Turks that he ended up using against the Turks.
Yeah.
Well, I don't think he was training with the Janissaries. I think he was just a hostage.
I
Well, yeah,
think it
but
was implied.
yeah, because the Janissaries were like they were kept to like the around Constantinople, and all the royal hostages were also kept in Constantinople. So put one and one together.
Right, and they were probably had him train with the Janissaries to probably indoctrinate him a little bit because the whole point of having the hostages wasn't just leverage. You also groomed the hostage because they'd be better subjects when it was their turn to take the throne.
Yeah. At least, yeah, indoctrinate them.
Worked great, huh?
It depended. I mean, if it constantly failed, they wouldn't keep trying it. It wouldn't be a common thing.
I was
I
joking.
mean, yeah, if we look at the record of Janissaries who were born Christian and were taken by the Dev Shemray and weren't the later generations that were born, the children of Janissaries are born into the Ottoman nobility, Vlad the Impaler would have been an outlier in his rebellion, which it's weird to think about. You would think an army of slaves would be more rebellious.
Well, that was
Yeah,
the
it
point,
depends.
because they weren't in line to be able to inherit anything. They couldn't inherit anything, so why would they care about Ottoman politics? They were just soldiers, paid well.
That is true.
It's
They
it,
were paid very well.
it's interesting if you see because the obviously you have the Janissaries in the Ottoman Empire, and you eventually saw, I believe, around the 18th, 19th century Taun, you saw like the Janissaries attempt to like essentially play like the part of the Praetorian Guard to take over the state, and they did assassinate a few sultans and install some. But you look at the origins of the Ottoman Empire with the Turkish migration from Central Asia, that began because the Turkish horse archers were taken as slaves by the Arab Caliphate and were used by the Arab caliphs and regional governors and nobles as a slave army. And eventually, after a good like 2 or 3 centuries, they eventually then rose up to take over the entire half the caliphate for themselves.
Right. And I still argue that the Seljuks taking over the caliphate is one of the great calamities to have ever happened to the Islamic world.
I'm not too familiar enough. I'm not familiar enough in Islamic history. I know like the Mongol invasion was devastating.
Yeah, the Mongols did it, but what I think happened with the Seljuks is the Abbasid Caliphate was very stable, very inward focused. But what the Seljuks did was they triggered another age of militarism and antagonism that destabilized the Abbasid Caliphate and did things like start the Crusades, and basically it brought a lot of external pressure down on the Islamic world, which did end up weakening it in the long run. While the Crusades did in fact fail, we tend to underestimate how much damage it actually did to the military of the Caliphate, and that it did in fact wear it down significantly.
So, to my knowledge, because I'm much more familiar in Byzantine history, is that the caliphate was on the decline, like a very fatal decline, almost a century before the First Crusade, roughly. And then, you know, as I said previously, the Arabs used Turkish slave soldiers, and they were brought in to
Hey,
replace the
fellas.
regular Arab army because of how unstable the caliphate was. Because the caliph couldn't rely on the regular Arab nobles to like be trustworthy.
So what was causing the downfall in the caliphate then, the decline?
The decline was a multitude of factors. I can't remember exactly what. Yes, Toby.
We're kind of drifting pretty far off topic.
We can drift off topic. It's whatever.
Yeah, but we did also have a second topic we were going to talk about too.
We've
Remember?
only been live for like 15 minutes.
Yeah, we got
To
time,
my,
man.
to my knowledge, I remember a comparison is that basically for the Arab Caliphate, they did in 4 centuries what the Roman Empire did in 8, and I remember this comparison from the History of Byzantium podcast. Is that they rose from nothing. They had a great expansion period. Then they were internally divided, moved capitals, created a whole new capital city, and then just began to become more internally unstable because they had expanded so fast. So you had various groups like the Egyptians and the Persians wanting their own like regional autonomy. You had various rivals within rival families and clans in Syria and Iraq fighting, and then with how much power was centralized in the caliphs in Baghdad versus Damascus, it became almost too top heavy as the caliph kept being like assassinated or overthrown or what have you by rivals. I'm oversimplifying it a lot, but that's what I roughly remember.
So basically, in a way, the caliphate was kind of like had a similar story to the Mongol Empire, where all they could do was grow and grow and grow. But once they stopped growing, all the internal divisions caused them to implode because they didn't actually spend any time building institutions in a state.
I don't know if I would go that far, only because the Mongol Empire lasted even less than the Arab
Right.
Caliphate.
But
But I would
I'm
say
just
that's the
using that
general
as an
trend.
example.
No, I get it. I get it. I would say yeah, you're pretty much there. You're like a good 70-80% there.
I will say, I think that's one thing that the Abbasids did right, is that they spent more of that time to do that state building rather than expanding. And I
Oh yeah.
think they really did try to stabilize the caliphate into a state, rather than what we saw with Rashidun and Umayyad, where they just saw the Islamic caliphate as a vehicle of expansion, as a war machine.
That's true. Yeah, yeah. Yeah, you have to remember too that the Abbasids were from the inception a hybrid of like Arab and Persian because the Abbasid revolution started in Persia
Right.
against the Syrian oriented Umayyads.
Right.
Weren't the Abbasids primarily Mesopotamian though?
Yeah, no, yeah, that's they built Baghdad. So, Baghdad in Iraq is halfway between Iran and Syria. So it had that mix between Arab and Persian.
Yeah, and they were more Shia aligned too, and I think that ended up being part of it as well because Shias tend to be more insular and clerical than Sunnis, at least in my experience.
Was
I
it?
thought I thought they were the Sunni Caliphate for a time.
To my knowledge, both the Umayyads and the Abbasids were Sunni. Wait a minute, no, is it? I don't remember to be honest. I have to look
Well,
that up.
I think they were officially Sunni. What I mean is that they tended to lean more toward the Shia than the Sunni.
Oh, then yeah, yes,
They tended to appease the Shias more.
yeah, because the whole claim I remember like was through blood relation to Muhammad, and that's like
Right,
the Shiite thing is like blood claim, the club sorry, blood descent.
right, and that's how they claim to be more legitimate than the Umayyads. But of course, the Umayyads had severely weakened themselves trying to take Constantinople.
We're gonna get a fatwa issued against us.
Let
Yeah,
them issue the fatwa. You should read some of my essays on Substack. I am not afraid of the fatwa.
well, I mean, I don't even think they can. I mean, we're not even like saying the right or wrong. We're just pointing out the history between two different royal, ruling clans in the history, which they themselves have various opinions on.
Has that ever?
I just love the fact that a fatwa is an actual thing. Like, a cleric somewhere could basically just put a bounty out on you.
See,
It's like,
in Catholicism, only one guy has that right. Imagine if like every priest or every pastor had that right. Oh my god.
you know, it amazes me that there is so much unity in the Islamic world as there is, because they have all the problems with, like, American Protestantism. And, and it's like, there seems to be no lack of disunity. Like, they just go with the flow, it seems. I don't know how they do it.
It surprises me. It surprises me this much. I've
Either
always
that
been.
or we just don't see it from the outside like we do with Christians.
It's possible. It's possible. If you really want a fatwa, did I say that right? A fatwa issued against us? What we should talk about is the theory that Islam was like created almost a century or two after the fact.
Heard of this theory, and I don't necessarily follow the theory. Have you? I think I've sent you my article, my criticism on Islam before. I think Islam is an imperial cult, basically.
I have no I have no recollection of that,
Okay,
Do it.
well,
but I can
if
see it from the value.
Toby, you were gonna say something.
Yeah, saying do explain why it's an imperial cult because I've never heard that one before.
Okay, so for those in the audience, an imperial cult is this idea of basically the what's the word I'm looking for? Not divination, but
Deification.
deification. Yeah, deification of state institutions, state leadership. Almost kind of a god king sort of thing, and an Esk would be a good example of an imperial cult. And so I believe that Islam is an Arab imperial cult. By that I mean the deification, not the deification, but the semi deification of Muhammad by turning him into an infallible prophet did not exist for the sake of Muhammad, but exists for the sake of legitimizing his successors and creating a unified Arab state. Like, I personally believe that Muhammad himself did not believe he was infallible, and the historical evidence also supports that. That the idea of Muhammad's infallibility came about centuries later. But I think this idea of his infallibility came about as a result of his successors trying to say if he's infallible and the caliph inherits his authority, then therefore the caliph is also infallible. Basically, to legitimize themselves. Because if we look at what the caliph is, he's just a monotheist god king, basically. He is both priest and secular ruler. And he's a priest king, is what he is. That's what a caliph is. And he is sort of the leader of this Arab imperial cult that was meant to unify the Arab world, to push the military conquest of the Arab world, of the Middle East and the Levant, and to enforce basically the assimilation of conquered peoples. That's why the Quran must be recited in Arabic. It has nothing to do with keeping the purity of the text. It has everything to do with enforcing everyone to learn Arabic and therefore assimilating them in the process. It's why all these very militaristic rules and teachings exist in Islam. It's not about, and this is why these things seem almost contradictory with some of Muhammad's earlier teachings, because you have the original Muhammad and you have this sort of warlord Muhammad that was cooked up by his successors, in my opinion, to justify their further militarism and conquests after Muhammad's death. Y'all follow?
Yeah, yeah. That's roughly the same theory as I forget what it's called, but the theory I was talking about, that Islam really didn't exist until a century after the fact.
Hey, quick thing. You know what tradition of Muhammad they didn't keep? Going out to the desert to meet with the men of Al-Lut.
I've never heard of this story.
You've never heard of it?
Yeah, and I'm really afraid to talk about it on this podcast, but then again, we've already gone deep down this rabbit hole.
Yeah, so basically there was it was a hadith. Muhammad and al-Bukhari go out to the desert one night. Muhammad draws a little line in the sand for al-Bukhari to sit in, or sit behind. Let's go ahead and call it the cup line for tonight's purposes.
No, okay, I'm gonna have to cut you off right here. We're not going any further with this conversation.
All right, fine. But you can look into it yourself.
Yeah, what? Let's not. Let's really not. For the record, I have nothing personal against Muslims. I don't. But it seem like actual genuinely decent people. This is merely a comment about the comments we're making here are merely theological in nature. Historical and
Observations and
theological.
secondhand claims.
What?
I said observations and secondhand claims.
Right.
Listen,
We are.
I'm open to I'm open to talk about any religion. I'm not going to attack any particular, well, with the exception of maybe one or two. I'm not, I'm open to discussing any religion, completely open, in good faith. I'm not trying to get over. I'm not over here trying to be like targeted by any one or any group.
Same here. Trust me, I can go all day about everything wrong with American Protestantism or the Catholic or Orthodox Church.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah. I mean, everyone's equally put under the microscope.
in my opinion, the big issue with the Catholic Church is it depends too much on being an institution. Like being a cultural institution in Catholic majority countries. And the problem with that is because it depends on being an institution, it's the faith in the Catholic Church is, for lack of a better term, I don't want to necessarily say hollow, but it's weak. Because it's not built on belief, it's built on the social expectation that one will be Catholic if they are born in a Catholic country. Does that make sense?
I can understand where your argument is coming from. For me, well, first off, I see what you mean by overemphasis on institutionalism, because you have to remember the history of the church was as like the arbitrator of a whole continent for like 1,000 years, give or take.
Right.
But
Right.
I
And
I think for me, it's maybe there's almost a bit of too much rationalism within it, and this is speaking as a Catholic, is like I'm not saying any of it's wrong or anything, but I think there's like almost too much emphasis on making sure everything is 100% right and understood. There's almost a lack of mysticism, which I find somewhat appealing in Orthodoxy.
but the
My
big
church
problem
has
with
the perfect balance of everything.
But the big problem with Orthodoxy, in my opinion, is they're way, way too insular. And that's the problem, that they always talk about how they're the one true church, how they do everything better and stuff, and you always hear that. But they're so insular, they just keep to themselves. They don't actually do anything with this, dare I say, sense of superiority or the superiority complex they have.
Oh, I agree there. And you have to remember two facts, at least two observations I've made. One, you have to look at the history. They've suffered, like, unlike Catholics and Protestants, they've suffered two great calamities, maybe three, if you want. Yeah, I'll say three. You have the Muslim conquests. the Muslims invasions under the Umayyads and the Ottomans. You have the Mongol conquests, and then you had the communist conquests, and not less the Mongols, but more so like the Muslim and communist conquest. There was a total suppression of the church. And so these traumatic events, and it wasn't just like one day if they come in, murder as many as they can and leave. This was centuries of suppression, and so that's really left them scarred and weakened in a way. And then secondly, well, this is more so my observation. The Orthodox will probably disagree with me, but it's for me, in my opinion, the Orthodox Church is Caesaro-Papist. I'm not saying it's a good or bad thing, but the problem is that it's dependent upon the state, and when the state that has no interest in trying to spread this faith, or at least trying to spread it for reasons not directly beneficial to the state, there's no it's completely dependent. It's been boxed in,
Right.
and especially now if it's the rise of nationalism since the 19th century. It's not just about spreading the faith; it's spreading the faith in line with the nation. So with that's why sorry, I just got lightheaded all of a sudden.
Oh, you okay, man?
Yeah. I'll get some water here in a second. But there's no reason to spread the faith if you're not spreading the faith with Greeks, with Russians, with Serbs, or
Right.
what have you. So that's my critical analysis of like the shortcomings of the Orthodox Church as a cultural political force.
And of course, with the Protestants, all of our problems comes down to two very, very specific words. Sola Scriptura.
Actually, there's more of a problem for evangelicals who practice sola scriptura. It's not really a problem for us Lutherans, actual Protestants.
Hey, 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 don't make me come over there.
Oh, I'm gonna make you come over here.
To be fair, I think you guys mean consubstantiation is a great idea.
Hey,
and I don't care
shut up.
what the Catholics and the Orthodox say. Consubstantiation makes so much more sense than transubstantiation. I'm not saying transubstantiation doesn't actually happen in specific miracles. I'm just saying it's not the normal case.
Consubstantiation is a foreign term.
I know, but it's the term I'm choosing to use.
Yeah.
Yeah, deal with it. Anywho, where were we? But yeah, speaking of Protestants having issues, Anglican Church just had another schism.
Oh, thankfully. I wanted to talk about that one.
You probably know more about it than I do. I just know that it happened. Enlighten us, please.
Yeah, so this issue actually goes all the way back to 2008, kind of. It probably starts earlier than that with the spreading of liberalism within the church. But so in 2008, a bunch of conservative gathered in Jerusalem, and they founded GAFCON. I forget what the acronym fully means, but they're basically the conservative faction. They continue within the Anglican communion for a while, even allowing some outside Anglicans who are outside of the communion to be part of their whole thing. So they keep going. They really don't like the liberalism in the church. And finally, like a month back now, Sarah Mullally is announced to be the next Archbishop of Canterbury. And the GAFCON issues a statement. Well, just yesterday morning, they finally decided that they had had enough and declared that they were breaking communion with Canterbury and anyone still aligned with Canterbury, and that they were the true Anglican communion now.
Hmm.
Although that being said, it's more simple to call them the global Anglican and the old communion just the Anglican communion.
You see, as a Wesleyan also breaking coming from a church tradition that also breaks off from Anglicanism. The Anglican Church seems to have this wonderful, wonderful habit of shooting themselves in the foot.
Well, that's because they're also Caesar or papists, and therefore dependent upon the liberal democracy of England.
Yep. Another great thing, not President Lutheranism. Or
At
rather,
least not
saying
a
great.
modern Lutheranism. If we go back to the original case of Lutheranism, when you had the state churches, I imagine that was more of a problem.
We still have state churches.
Really?
Yeah.
Such as
Sweden, Norway, I believe Denmark, Finland, Latvia. Latvia has a really good conservative archbishop. At least I think it was
I
Latvia.
forgot Latvia was technically a Protestant country.
Yeah.
Although the Baltic states, a lot of them are more atheists now because communism. And then there's the prodigal son, the Czech Republic, or Czechia nowadays, where it all began with the Hussites, which has the highest rate of atheism on the planet.
A great tragedy.
Truly. The true Protestant Reconquista will come when we reclaim Prague.
Can we defenestrate a couple people when we do it?
It's tradition, of course we can.
Yay!
what are you gonna defenestrate?
Probably a couple Catholic leaders.
No, can we do some
tradition.
televangelists, please? Please,
For
I have
who?
a list of, people that's okay. I will say this: I do have a lot of issues with some of the things the Catholic Church did in the past, and I do think the Protestant Reformation was justified solely on the grounds that the Catholic Church would not listen and change unless it actually happened. But that being said, there are some people on this earth that make me think they really had a point when it came to burning certain people at the stake for heresy. There, I said it.
Eh.
I'm not going to say who for legal reasons, but there are certain people I think I was like, they really should not be allowed to preach in any way, shape, or form.
Steven Anderson, Joel Osteen, Kenneth Copeland, those kind of guys.
Joel Osteen passes. I was 110% thinking of Kevin Copeland.
Kenneth Copeland. Dude is
Kenneth
a fucking
Copeland.
demon wearing a human skin.
He literally does. Like, if all the conspiracy theorists talk about reptile people, he literally looks like a doll. Like, he's the least human person I've ever seen. He 110% triggers the uncanny valley with that smile.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, really quick, I know I'm late, but I had to look out for my own sanity. And in Europe, it's only like Britain and Denmark that officially have a state church. The other Scandinavian countries like disestablished those.
Oh, how sad.
The churches still exist.
No, yeah,
They
but
just-
I mean like disestablished as in made it like separate from the state.
But I maintain.
Oh yeah, and
Now-
Iceland too. Iceland is also a state religion for Protestantism.
Now, while we're here, I guess we could quickly talk about the topic of the idea of America having a state religion. And a lot of people bring this up on Twitter, and whenever I'm running the mo with Twitter, I constantly have to retort that it is not practically feasible for America to have a state religion because
Yeah,
no one would ever agree on what denomination would get that title.
well, you gotta keep in mind too, we are an imperial power. We are not a nation state. A national church works for a nation state. We're not that. The Midwest, I could see a couple state Lutheran churches there. The South, a couple of state Baptist churches. New England, a couple Presbyterians, maybe even the Catholic Church. But as a whole, no. And maybe we could have an Anglican emperor, and an Anglican be the religion of the imperial government. but it cannot be like the full state religion.
So basically, you're saying it should be up to each individual state to pick its own church,
That
so to
sounds
say.
awful.
He's whose state, whose religion?
Ohio could swing either way between Methodist or Lutheran. Depends on who wins, the Anglos or the Germans.
My state's effed in the A, man. We have way too many religious groups here.
Yeah, I wouldn't even begin to know what Michigan would choose. Y'all are all over the place. You would almost need to pick a second one for the Upper Peninsula alone.
Nah, man. We tried 2 state religions. That's it. My state's going to like 5-way civil war.
Let's be honest, the Upper Peninsula should be its own state.
No,
Yes.
no. Missouri shouldn't have St. Louis then.
Okay, controversial opinion. It really makes me irate that Kansas City is not the capital of Kansas.
I don't understand why there's
I
2
will-
Kansas cities.
I will hunt. Well, it's because they copied it. They copied it. Kansas City, Missouri was established before the territory of Kansas was even established. So the entire state of Kansas is a copycat of our city. It is ours. It belongs to us. And so help me God, one day we will have both halves of it.
And of
Why do
course,
you want Kansas? I'm sorry, I don't know anything about Kansas other than it exists. Is there anything worth getting from there apart from like, the Wizard of Oz like copyright?
I would like
And
to
of
enforce the
course-
copyright. And just not necessarily to take the land, but more so to lord over the Kansans and make sure they remember Missouri is better than they are.
And of course, while we're talking about cities that are split on the border, we really need to do something about Sault Ste. Marie.
Why?
Who?
Oh, because there's like technically 2 of them. It's
Yeah,
a
half
city
of
here
it's
in like
in.
Michigan. It's 2 different cities with the same name. There's one here in Michigan and one directly opposite of it in Canada. I mean, you can
Right, because
walk.
the city was built before the border was defined. And like Nogales, I love the fact that Nogales, USA is so much better than Nogales, Sonora, Mexico.
I've never heard of
Yeah.
this place.
You know
Okay,
how
so
we can rectify the map solution to that?
yes, just move
I
the
think
border a bit south.
And by a bit south, I mean, hold on one second. Go look.
Oh my god, why would we want to go south? Move the border north.
Oh yeah. Do that too. Manifest destiny all the way. Hell yeah, brother. But move it both. I say we should probably move the southern border to be about to Guatemala.
What?
Go that far.
That's gonna make the problem even worse for us.
No,
That's
because
gonna
it's a
give
smaller border. It's a much smaller border.
But
the
anywho,
Mexicans are failing to try and keep that. Well, they're not failing, but they're trying to keep that back right now. And they have such a hassle with it.
All right,
but
fine.
anywho,
Then we can take Guatemala too, and an even smaller border of just El Salvador and Honduras on either side.
guys, we're missing another important part.
Oh yes,
What?
We need to
Greenland.
acquire West Alaska.
No.
Okay, for those of you who do not know, the most eastern part of Siberia is technically on the North American plate, and that's why it's so mountainous. Meaning we need to continue going so far west that we end up in the east again. Just look, Russia's not using Siberia efficiently. If Russia collapses, it should be a relentless push west across the Bering Strait and through Siberia. We will make so much better use of it.
Here's the question, though. Then, are we really using Alaska efficiently?
Yes.
We're using it more efficiently than Russia's using Siberia.
We allow the Alaskans to like have a say in the Senate. I
True.
would love to see what the Siberians have in Russia, in the Russian government.
I feel like Alaska would get a lot more development if there was actually a land connection. Like, we really need British Columbia. We really do.
Yep. British Columbia and a little bit chunk of the Yukon territory. Just
I
around
want
Mount.
I want
I,
everything west of Ontario, the province of Ontario.
you know what? No, I'm just gonna say it. As much as I love our Canadian neighbors, the one thing Karl Marx said that was 110% right is that Canada is a principal part of the U.S., and I'm not gonna stop acting like it's not.
Wait, Mark said that?
Yeah, Marx actually said
It's
that.
exceedingly rare Marx W. Like
Yes.
critically rare. But damn.
So real. I don't believe he said
Well,
that.
here's the thing though. Canada is really just the independent Midwest. That's really all it is.
Well, at least Ontario and like some of the prairie states, yes.
Yeah, I
British
guess
Columbia
Quebec
is
and
110% Cascadia, and Quebec is Quebec.
Quebec and in Newfoundland, and they're all Yankees.
Newfoundland and Nova Scotia are 110% just an extension of Maine.
Cuba and Mexico almost definitely pop Dixie's land.
Wish I was in Dixie. Hooray, hooray.
Hey, we
That
don't
was
sing
supposed to
that
be like a
version.
joke and an insult at the same time.
Yeah,
Can
but
I just say we need some better names for the American nations? Like Dixie's got a good name, New England's a good name, but Midwest, that just sounds boring.
I like New Hanover personally.
Okay, Red Dead player.
It's not because of Red Dead. I swear to God, it's not because of Red Dead. It's because like it was acquired by the Hanoverians.
you know, my
I guess yeah, New Hanover in Red Dead is based off the Midwest in a way, or the Great Plains or whatever.
it somewhat makes sense given all the German influence in the Americas, but
That too.
I still kind of like the fact that we just call the Midwest the Rust Belt. I've always actually been fond of the name Rust Belt,
But
even if
it
it's
might
sort of a
sound
derogatory
cool.
statement.
Yeah, but it's derogatory. That's like
I am going
I
to
won't make
die.
a comparison.
I know, but it goes hard, okay? It goes really hard. I don't know why
Okay.
it goes hard, but it goes hard.
We need to get that Rust Belt cleaned again and working.
We're working
We
on
need more
it.
factories and we need more farms by
Agreed,
any
agreed.
means. I think part of I probably not this year, but it's soon. If I go to like a graduate program, I want to research that. I want us to like I don't want to say return to primitive economics, but we need to rebuild our like foundational economic bases.
I
I know
want to see What I want to see is I want to see the Rust Belt develop more of a cultural revolution. Like New England has its own cultural identity, the South has its own cultural identity, the West Coast has its own cultural identity, Cascadia. But the Midwest, while we have a sort of subculture, we haven't really spent enough time developing it, in my opinion. I feel like we could do more to develop it a bit more. Like I feel
we
like
can.
the Midwest would take better care of itself if we spent more time developing that regional cultural identity.
Yeah, I agree. Cultural and financial, because everyone here just like flees. It's either they accept that we have nothing here, or we supposedly have nothing, or they move away to like the South, the West Coast, New England, because it's like, oh, this is where everything is. I want to go there. So we're just hemorrhaging people. Well, like Eastern Europe right now. Everyone young or everyone with ideas and stuff says, screw it, I'm gonna go, I'm gonna leave.
But that also means we're one of the few places in the U.S. that doesn't have rampant housing crises.
Uh, do I don't remember if we do or no or don't. I
Oh, we
truly
lost
don't
Toby.
remember.
Where'd Toby go?
Maybe he lost internet connection.
Probably. Well, do we have any final remarks, or are we ready to wrap it up?
I think I'm all good.
All right. Well, please bow your head and join me in prayer. In the name of the Father, Son, and the Holy Spirit. Our Father, who art in heaven, Hallowed be thy name, thy kingdom come, thy will be done, on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us of our trespasses, as we forgive those who trespass against us. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. Amen. Thank you all for joining us this week on Monarchist Minute. We hope to see you next time, same place. If you're watching this on YouTube, hit like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening to this on Spotify or another such streaming service, hit whatever the notification button is to make sure you're notified of new episodes when they're uploaded. Follow us on social media. Get a hold of us via email or direct message if you want to help out the cause, or join us on Discord. Until next time, may God bless you and may God bless the United States of America. Thank you and good night.